Joe Burrow is back with the Bengals, and we'll also be talking to Michael Fabiano about your fantasy football coming up next on the Wincinnati podcast.
It's an exciting time to be a Bengals fan.
I'm Ace and Zim.
We got a special show as always.
The voice of the Bengals. Dan Ford, Willie Anderson, Corey Dillon.
The name of this thing is called Wincinnati, and I'm not going to stop.
Talk to us about that roller coaster season.
I'm still going to give you the same AJ.
I'm going to work as hard as I can to be the best.
Always working ever since I met y'all, boy.
I got to get your top 5 receivers.
Better, man.
It was good.
Watch out for us.
Welcome to the Wincinnati podcast. He is Zim. I am Ace. Zim, how you doing today, bro?
Man, I'm doing good, man. I was just watching that intro, and I was just looking. I was like, man, that guy Yoshi's got it. You know, like how you feel about Joe Burrow sometimes, or you probably just see a Joe Burrow thing. Everywhere I go now, it's just like Yoshi. Like even other teams are just like Yoshi. He's got something about him that it just makes it like where everybody's just gravitating and wants to know more about Yoshi. And I heard he was on a show the other day, and they were asking about like, your nickname and stuff like that and all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, this is crazy when you really think about like the journey that we're kind of on. And on the path to Vegas Super Bowl, we only got 5 more practices, I think, left until week 1. Joe Burrow is 37 days removed from the calf injury. So he's feeling good. I'm feeling good. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great, man. As you said and alluded to, we're going to talk about Joe Burrow being back. He showed up actually yesterday as we're recording this today. This was actually his second practice back with the Bengals. So we'll get into that. And then, of course, there's always the debates going on out there, Burrow and Mahomes. We're going to be talking about this probably for a while, so get used to it. So we'll give our takes on that debate and how it's raging on in the national media. And then, of course, we're going to bring you guys a special guest. Michael Fabiano is going to join the show, talk a little bit about fantasy. So we have that coming up next.
Hey, what's up, Bengals fans? Mike Hilton. I'm on the Wincinnati pod with Ace and Zim.
All right, let's talk about Joe Burrow returning to practice. Bengals Twitter went viral yesterday when Joe Burrow walked out with pads on. That's all we needed to hear. Joe Burrow's got his pads on, and Bengals Nation went wild. Brian Callahan today was interviewed and says that he feels really good about the work that Joe's put in the last 2 days. A lot of people feel like he hasn't missed a beat. Zach Taylor kind of talked about that. What were your thoughts, obviously, on Joe Burrow coming back? It's exciting, but what were your thoughts on the second day or just his return in general on coming back to practice?
I mean, I had a feeling. I mean, little birdie told me that he was practicing, and it's one of them things where I don't know. Like, man, being a Bengals fan is really fun right now. I hope everybody appreciates these moments because it's just dope watching him. It sounds so crazy because on the outside end, I see people be like, "Bro, the media goes so crazy every time they say something about Joe Burrow." But I'm like, bro, we hadn't seen him in like a month. Comes out there swagged out with what's our boy Will Grier, like the Joe Burrow stroll, and then you hear the accounts from T. Higgins and Jamar, and he just gets in a huddle. He's like, "Hey guys, and, we're back to work, and we're back like we never left." I always say like it's 9-1. It's Joe, it's Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase is 9-1, but this is not no part-time shift. This is really, what it really is, and it's just a good feeling. He seems to be feeling good. Nothing about it has indicated that they're taking any precautions with it. You can see him kind of flexing it, probably doing what they told him to do behind the scenes all this time. He's had a walkthrough. Jamar Chase kind of alluded to that throughout this process where he said, yeah, this isn't the first time that, he's had a organized, I guess, walkthrough or whatever. But here we are. We're back, and he looks good, man. I don't know. It's business as usual.
Yeah, and that's why it's dope if you guys are watching this live on our YouTube channel, because you can see from this video there is no sleeve on the leg, no compression sleeve at all. Joe's out there looking pretty good. Some people said that he hasn't done 11 on 11 yet, but he plans on kind of ramping that up. This is kind of the timeline I expected. Him coming back, 2 weeks or a week and a half from the season. I felt like that's all he really needed. And it's going to give the Bengals that shot that they kind of needed. Obviously, we all had to suffer through that preseason with horrible quarterback play. Seeing him back with the Amigos, not only working with them, getting that chemistry with Charlie Jones, Irv Smith, Andre Yosivas, obviously that's important. So him coming back and playing with these guys and guys getting ready to go obviously is big. And I can't wait to see what Joe Burrow has in store for week 1. Some people may think, is he going to come out rusty like he did week 1 against the Steelers? I honestly don't think so. I think that this is a different kind of situation. In that situation, he had an operation, lost weight, didn't have the same strength. In this situation, he was still working out behind the scenes, still lifting weights,
the game plan?
Stuff like that.
You talked about
the
that
game
Steelers
plan
thing.
Against the Browns.
What's the game plan week 1 against the Browns?
I think you first want to test if that new run defense that the Browns have is actually legit. Obviously, last year they were 32nd in the league. They've added more people onto that line. They've got a new defensive coordinator, but I think that you definitely have to test them with the run. But I think you use a balanced attack. You don't get away from what your identity is, which is the Migos. So I think that you give them a healthy dose of mixing to test it. And then maybe you set up some play action, which they didn't do much of. But now that you have the line, maybe that opens it up. So I think that's how you kind of attack them. You start off with the ground game to test them to see what you get there. If it's not working or if it's decent, then you also throw in the passing game as well, especially if Denzel Ward isn't out there, which potentially he may be out week 1 with a concussion, which is huge. What about you? What's your game plan?
Man, I've been taking bits and pieces of everybody's game plan because one of our guys, Divine, was talking about this in space. It's like, man, you gotta go to the quick game. I feel like you do that later. I really think, with the calf injury, I don't want to come out there and it's so cookie cutter that you're going 3 and out because you haven't had good runs. I'm not saying that, but if you got 14 plays or something, I'm thinking eight of those should be run plays. You know what I'm saying? And in the passing plays are action off of the run. And I just think you're getting them to sell out hard because remember, they want to stop the run because they were the 22nd ranked run defense in the NFL or whatever. So they're going to come into the game and say, well, that's one thing we need to do. We need to do. So you got to put the pressure on them to do that. I think you play the field position game. Everybody talks about that Halloween game and how we got blown out, which I do agree. But that game was 0-0 with 4 minutes left in the second quarter in the AFC North football, and we were still throwing the football, and you gave Myles Garrett a chance to go make a play. And to me, if I can limit his chances to go get it, now you got Zadarius Smith on the other side. You got the kid from the Texans, Rockbo, or I'm sorry, I'm not Aronquo. I think that's how you say his name. But you got him rotating in it too. So they got a healthy pass rush. So you got to get away from what they do best. You don't want to play into their strength of what they do best. To me, they're one of the best edge combos in the league. So that's what I would do. Take a page from that Bills playing game plan where they line Jamar up in all these different spots. And that's going to give Joe Burrow a lot of information pre-snap. And just let Shiesty, work his way through his progressions early on. If he can get a check at the line and take a big shot, take it. I'm not saying don't do that. Yeah. If you get a one-on-one, I don't care if it's Denzel Ward, take it. But I don't know if they're going to give him that opportunity. But if I see that T. Higgins or Jamar Chase, I'm doing it.
I think they will, just because Jim Schwartz, he runs a lot of cover 1 and cover 3, so there will be some one-on-one opportunities. Obviously, if they do the deep thirds, they're going to try to limit those opportunities. But if you catch them lacking in cover 1, I'm definitely, like you said, taking that shot against those guys. You got to keep the defense honest, right? You got to show them that even though Joe Burrow has had the calf injury, there's no limitations on us taking deep shots or trying to make explosive plays. So I completely agree with you on that one. Let's talk about this debate, keeping it with Burrow. There's a big debate going on right now between Joe Burrow and obviously Patrick Mahomes, who won the MVP last year. A lot of people felt like it was very close last year. A lot of people kind of gave it to Mahomes based off of him beating us and getting to the Super Bowl and winning the MVP. Skip Bayless, though, believes that Joe Burrow, and I have to agree with him, operates the offense more efficiently and consistently. I think when it comes to what a quarterback should be, when it comes to who guys should be studying, it's Joe Burrow. When it comes to the mechanics, when it comes to his presence in the pocket, when it comes to his reads at the line, when it comes to the decisiveness, there's nobody in the league, in my opinion, better than Burrow. Look at him versus the blitz, PFF, 91.3 from the pocket. When he's got a clean pocket, 96, the highest score on this list, the highest grade on this list. One of the reasons that I wanted Penei Sewell is because if you give Joe Burrow a clean pocket, he will literally rip your heart out every single play. There's no counter for that. So even though Mahomes is a great quarterback, he does all of these explosive things. I think when we were in spaces earlier, some compared it to Aaron Rodgers versus a Tom Brady kind of thing, where Burrow's more of a Brady, where he's going to slice and dice you and laser you all the way up the field, and Aaron Rodgers is going to throw the wild passes. For me, obviously, I'm taking Joe Burrow. What about you, man? How do you feel about Keyshawn talking about Burrow hasn't even won a division, which is crazy because that's not even true. I don't even know where Keyshawn got that. But what are your thoughts on this debate in terms of Pat and Burrow?
I swear that I wish if y'all ever see me on TV, it's over. Like people like that are going to get cooked like you've never seen before. In the cadence I'm gonna give them, like in the information, like it's so funny to hear somebody here be talking about Stephen A or Keyshawn, and I look at this all like rap, right? Like maybe it's my rapping background or whatever. Keyshawn was like, I don't even think like they won the division. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, imagine you get on a stage and you're not even sure like what you're saying. You're getting booed off the stage from where I come from. You feel me? So I see stuff like that and I just be like, you don't even know what to do with the mic, bro. Like, I can't stand it. And then I look at Skip and I'm looking at that. I'm like, bro, he's so washed. And I appreciate him taking the Burrow side, but I feel like that's a pre-production meeting type of thing. Even though I don't think he's like a Burrow hater or anything. I don't know. But the Burrow versus Mahomes thing is so subjective that it's like impossible for me to say, of course, if you're not a Bengals fan, it's a no-brainer, Mahomes. But I will just say, people always say, well, should the Bengals have taken what would have happened if Mahomes would have been taken right there instead of John Ross, right? Mahomes with Marvin Lewis. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like Mahomes is great, but I don't know. Like maybe that's one ring. Maybe that's one ring. Maybe that's one ring. I don't know. I don't know that because I know that he came onto a team that had already just gone 12-4 with one of the greatest offensive minds that we've ever seen. And yes, he hasn't had really good defenses every year. I do understand that. But he did have the Hall of Fame tight end. He did have Tyreek Hill and all these different things. So I want to make sure, because, when the Burrow conversation always comes up, it's always he's got weapons until it's time to get those weapons accolades. So like people that we know in spaces was like, yeah, I mean, I'm not ready to say Jamar Chase is top 2 yet. And I'm thinking to myself, like, so you're saying he's number 5, number 6. I just seen Stephon Diggs in the playoffs do nothing. Literally do nothing. As great as Stephon Diggs is, but you seen Jamar Chase do what he's supposed to do in that moment, and you still don't want to give him that credit, but yet you're telling us every single day that Burrow is carried by these dudes. So which one is it? When it's time to give out accolades or awards, you tell them about, remember I was telling the Browns people today, I'm like, bro, y'all sleeping on the Bengals secondary. Man, you crazy. Y'all secondary so much crazy. So, but then you come back to the same conversation in the playoffs and say, Burrow ain't do nothing. He was carried by the defense. All right, so get a defense recognition. You know what I'm saying? And they just never do that. And I feel like that's how the Burrow and Mahomes conversation will go. It's like every time that you say a point for Mahomes, the opposite end, naturally, I'm a Bengals fan. I'm gonna be like, bro, you got Andy Reid. If you give Joe Burrow, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, I think I'm not only are we beating Jimmy G, we dropping 40 on him, like 40. It's not even close. How do I know? Because I seen Burrow without Jamar Chase for 6 weeks. I seen him without T. Higgins for 4. I seen him without Tyler Boyd for 2. I seen him without Hayden Hurst for 2. I seen him without Joe Mixon for 2. Without our best defender and DJ Reader for 5. Without cornerback Cheeto Bay Awuzie, who is the top 10 cornerback for 10 plus games. So like you gotta see that's what they need to be saying when you get on TV instead of did he win the division? Like you need somebody like me on there cooking for real, telling people what really happened. The same person that get on that TV screen and tell them about Lamar Jackson and be like, yeah, I mean, if Lamar was there, how come you don't say the same thing about the Bengals players when they're not there? Jamar Chase, everybody witnessed this dude get 152 tutties with a fractured hip, but ain't nobody said, damn, what, he gone. And the Bengals went on a 10-game win streak. Matter of fact, millions of people watched Joe Burrow get hurt in front of their living room. Millions. Sprain PCL, sprain MCL. That's the same injury that Lamar Jackson had that had him out 8 weeks. Hey, you ever heard anybody ever come back to you and say, you know what? Those Bengals are good. But, Joe Burrow did suffer an injury on one leg because we hear one leg all the time and stuff. Y'all, millions of people watch Joe Burrow on one leg and never give him credit for it. So the conversation between the two is crazy to me. I think that Joe Burrow mentally is far ahead, like on some Peyton Manning type stuff. I just think from a skill attribute level, Mahomes is like out of this world and doing things that people have never seen with a football too. So there's so many different conversations and nuances to that, where I don't even know the parameters that you're judging about. If it's just skill, 100% Mahomes. If it's the mental portion of it or whatever, I'm gonna go Burrow. And some people value Burrow. Just straight up, 1,000. And some people just value winning. So, I mean, Burrow's won in a short amount of time, and yes, he didn't win a Super Bowl, but bro, he got to a bowl quick.
He was in a tougher situation, like you said. Tougher situation.
Jalen Hurts had the same circumstances as Joe Burrow in 2021. 6-7 win team, whatever. But he had a top 3, top 5 offensive line, goes 9-8, first round exit. No AJ Brown, none of that. Jalen Hurts comes back the next season, top 1 offensive line, top 2 wide receiving core, and a top 10 defense, one of the best pass rushers you've ever seen. And nobody ever says Jalen Hurts has got weapons. But Joe Burrow took a 28th ranked offensive line straight to the bowl with the same circumstances.
They don't get it, man. They don't get it. Well, I think, like you said, depends on what your taste is. I would go with Burrow for sure. But speaking of the quarterback position, the Bengals brought in another quarterback. Will Grier was added to the practice squad. We kind of talked about him being a target that we thought the Bengals should go after, especially based off of what we saw in the preseason. He had a tremendous performance, 358 total yards, 4 touchdowns in that one, even had some rushing touchdowns in that one. I think he's going to fit in well. I think the reason that they chose to put him on the practice squad is for him to get comfortable with the offense, because obviously he wasn't here. He didn't get that whole offseason and training camp and preseason play like Jake Browning did. So I thought that was a good move. Obviously, there were limited backup quarterbacks that were out there. Matt Corral just signed today with the Patriots. Blake Zappi or Blaine Zappi, I can't recall his first name, but Zappi for the Patriots ended up signing back. But this is the guy that I kind of wanted, was Will Grier, a guy that's 28, has been in the league, has been on, the Cowboys. A lot of people talked about him being a journeyman. He's really only been on 2 teams. He's really only been on the Panthers and on the Cowboys. He's been on the Cowboys the last 2 seasons. Definitely a good addition to the room. I'm glad that we were able to get him. What were your thoughts on Will Grier?
I'm big on Will Grier. I thought coming out, there was conversations when he came out of West Virginia about him possibly going to a team and getting a starting, gig or whatever. You know what I'm saying? That conversation changed quickly, but at the same time, I never forgot that, and I think he never had gotten a real chance. So we got to see how it goes, but I think Will Grier is a perfect example of how you go and make that move to go get somebody behind Burrow that kind of mirrors or patents some of his elements of his game after him.
For sure. Yeah, so I think Will Grier is a great pickup for the Bengals. Speaking of holes on the roster, right? Backup quarterback was a hole. Will Grier has filled that one. Are there any remaining holes on the Bengals 53-man roster to you?
Yes, backup center. I think Trey Hill should not be on an NFL roster, let alone my favorite teams. So backup center, I'm not with it. People say, well, you got Max Sharpen. Obviously, Max Sharpen didn't show them enough, in my opinion, for them to even bring back Trey Hill. So Max Sharpen would be the emergency center or whatever, I guess, in a whatever. But to me, that's your first guard probably off the bench because I don't know how they feel about Carmen at this point at guard. But
Right.
he has the ability to play center, but that's not like, you know, like I wanted to do from the Browns just dropped Dunn, but he goes back to the practice squad. Or I would have liked to see the Bengals make a move for a guy. That I kind of worry about the depth behind tight end. I was going to say the cornerback when you see guys like Rush getting claimed by the Chiefs. Cornerback was a conversation, but then Juan Drago, I hope I'm not getting ahead, but Juan Drago coming back out there to practice today, I was like, shoot, I'm good on corner. You got Sidney Jones on the practice squad? Come on, bro, we loaded.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on the interior offensive line. And even though you do have Max Sharpen, you know, you don't have another guard. And if it is Carmen, then that takes away from your backup at left tackle. So obviously they clearly need somebody that can play both guard positions. And sometimes guys can't play each side. So definitely feel like that interior O-line is needed for sure, as well as a tight end, man. I mean, honestly, I am not feeling good with any kind of Irv Smith insurance that we currently have. The current guys behind there, you know, we've talked about it numerous times. I don't think I need to exhaust anymore. You guys know how I feel. Hopefully that's a position that they can build some quality depth behind as this season goes on. And hopefully we can get our guy Irv staying healthy this season because he's going to be a monster. But in the event that he does go down, I think that will be a huge, huge hit to the roster. So now let's get into what some of the people have come here for. We had the privilege of our guy Sova getting together with Michael Fabiano, who is a great fantasy football analyst, has worked for the NFL Network, is doing some current great stuff. So let's switch it to our fantasy guru, Michael Fabiano, coming up next.
My boy Ryan. That's my boy. Look at him. That's my boy.
Ryan is trying to get that together. So as we're getting that together, man, fantasy for you when it comes to the Bengals, obviously Jamar Chase is kind of going off of the board. I just had a draft this past weekend. He went off second overall.
What pick did you have?
I actually ended up with the 6th pick in the draft. So I wanted Chase, but there was no way I was going to get him.
Who'd you go with 6?
At 6, I actually went with Bijan. After that performance that he had against us.
I was so scared, bro. I didn't have enough hair on my nuts. Cooper Kupp was right there, bro. And in my league, it's such a big reward for wide receivers. Was Cooper Kupp on the board when you went to go draft?
Cooper Kupp was on the board, and I went with Bijan.
Is this a PPR?
No, it's a half PPR. But it seems like Ryan may have solved our issue. Let's toss it back to Ryan with the Michael.
That's my boy, Ryan. Look, I feel like a proud dad. Look at my boy, Ryan.
With fantasy expert, fantasy guru, the Hall of Famer, the legend, Michael Fabiano. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, bro. Good to see you. I haven't changed your stripes there with your Cincinnati Bengals. You see, and then behind me, I actually have the current Bengals helmet.
You have the white stripes?
I got this one, which I love. This is the old school.
The gray one.
I love that one. And then I've got the white tiger one too. You can't see it. It's a little behind me though. Always love the Bengals helmets.
What do you think of that new white one when they
I dig it, man. I like it. I think it's cool.
Yeah. Super cool. When they are able to do the all white thing, it's just awesome.
I like it.
Cool. Well, we want to talk fantasy here. Fantasy is a big part of the Wincinnati podcast and the Wincinnati show. I want to ask you, Bengaldom went insane earlier this week. Joe Burrow back at practice. What are your projections from him? I don't know if you have any limitations on drafting him early based on missing training camp. But what are your projections for Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow?
if there's a tier one, he just misses it, and he might jump into it if he has a good enough season this year. But I didn't drop him at all. He's always been my QB4 behind, Mahomes and Allen and Hurts, but he's right there. He's right there. And Burrow, the calf injury hadn't scared me from drafting him. I've gotten him in a few leagues. I've always been a big fan of Joey B. Love the moxie, and he's got one of the best receiving trios in the league there, of course, led by Jamar Chase. So I didn't have any trepidation at all. I have shares of him. He's been going off the board probably 5th round. Although when the injury news came out, he dropped a little bit. But I've still been all in on him. Big fan.
When for you, when are you most comfortable drafting his tier quarterback?
Typically, I wouldn't be, but like things have changed so much across like the fantasy football landscape that, again, 5th round. I don't think he'll last to the 6th round. He was dropping somewhat because of the injury initially when it came out in the video, and everyone's like, "Oh man, it's non-contact. What happened?"
Right.
But he's, to me, slotted in right below the top 3, and he's in that Lamar, and I think he's better than Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields and Justin Herbert. But he's at the top of that tier.
So your top 3, I'm guessing Mahomes, Allen, and Hurts.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you mentioned those talented receivers on this show. We call them the Amigos. Where are you drafting guys? Where are you comfortable drafting Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd?
Jamar is my number 2 player overall. So it's JJ and then Jamar. And then I've got McCaffrey at 3. I've got a lot of Jamar. I will take him all day long. He had a good year last year. Missed obviously 5 games because of the injury. I don't know that I'd call him injury prone though. And he's a stud. T. Higgins is 2nd or 3rd round pick, at worst 3rd round pick.
Right.
And I'd love to see him play somewhere where he could be a 1, but I know Bengals fans don't want that. And he still scored 220 points last year in PPR. So he's a wide receiver 2. And then Boyd, Boyd he's never really been like a superstar player like a Jamar. He's more of a late round wide receiver 5 type. Just there's a lot of mouths to feed in that offense. So
sure. And these rankings, Jamar Chase, whether it's a PPR or not, is your number 2 player overall?
Standard league's different because you're looking at running backs more heavily. So I don't know that he'd be my number 2 in a standard league. But if you're playing in a standard league, it's 2023 right now, folks. Let's get with the program and start adding points for catches.
You mentioned the running back, Joe Mixon. Does he sneak into a round 1? Does the loss of Samaje Perine, tell you that he may get more pass catches? Where do you like Joe Mixon?
He's not a 1st round pick, and he had a down year last year. And if it wasn't for that 54, 55 point game against Carolina, he really would have had a disappointing year because the year before was his career best. But offensive line should be better with Orlando Brown. The offense is awesome. You can't focus on stopping the run or Burrow kill you. So, yeah, he's still like a borderline RB1 type. Probably I'd feel comfortable with him as a high 2. But also keep in mind, a lot of people these days, including myself, are heavily focusing on wide receivers. So if you can get Mixon in round 3 as your RB1 after going after wide receivers at the first 2 picks, then yeah, he won't be on the board after the first 4 rounds. He's a 4th round pick at worst.
Is there they've drafted a running back? Is there anyone that there's a steal that you handcuff him with in case he gets hurt on their? Roster?
Yeah, that's a good question, honestly. My guess is that it's Travion Williams who's the handcuff, but they drafted Chase Brown too. Chris Evans is still there. I really don't know. If Mixon gets hurt, I think it's going to be a committee, and it'll be kind of tough to decipher, who's going to be the lead back there. So hopefully Mixon doesn't get hurt. But if I had to drive a handcuff, it'd probably be Travion.
The Bengals signed a free agent this year, a guy who's shown flashes of talent, was a high draft pick, but just for whatever reason can't stay healthy at times. Right. Irv Smith. Hayden Hurst had maybe the best year of his career last year in this offense. Do you see something similar? Do you see any fantasy value? See a late round, like that bottom of your bench kind of guy?
Yeah, late round tight end too. It's all about injuries. I mean, remember he came out of college. I mean, everyone was talking about how this guy's such a great pass catcher, and we were all waiting for him to break out. And there was a time in Minnesota where it looked like maybe it was going to happen, and then he got hurt again. But he's in a great – I mean, could he have landed in a better spot? I don't know, right? Hurst is out. Smith – now the problem is the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
They've already got 3 really good wide receivers, and so the ceiling takes a hit. So even though Hurst, may have had a good year last year in fantasy, wasn't that great.
Right.
So he was more of a tight end 2 bench type player, or maybe even waiver wire guy. Irv Smith, I think, is a better pass catcher. Let's see if he can avoid the injuries. It's all about the injuries with him. But even still, even in a best case scenario, I don't see him being more than a high tight end 2 in that offense.
Yep, makes sense. Let's shift it to the other side of the ball. The Bengals defense, not a huge intercepting type team in the past, but where do you rank them in terms of fantasy?
Yeah, they're probably not going to get drafted, to be honest with you. They're going to be more of a waiver wire, I want to stream a defense, and the Bengals have a great matchup this week sort of situation. Mm-hmm. Now, you could say that, right? I mean, they play the Browns in week 1.
Yep.
Deshaun Watson didn't really look good in the second half of last year. I mean, maybe you want to, throw I think it's a home game for the Bengals too, right?
So at Cleveland.
Oh, it is in Cleveland. Okay. So maybe that hurts them a little bit. I don't know that they're going to get drafted. They certainly have talents in some spots, but if you're playing the matchups, you're probably not like the Commanders in week 1 are really good. The Seahawks in week 1 are really good. Mm-hmm. The Ravens in week 1 are really good just because of the teams they're playing.
Right.
I mean, Cleveland, we're not sure what they're going to be, but they certainly have a lot of talent. So I don't know that I'd be playing the Bengals defense in week 1, which means they're probably not going to get drafted.
All right. So obviously we're a Bengals show, we're a Bengals podcast, but we know that all of you out there have your own fantasy drafts and you're drafting players from all the teams. Mike, give me a sleeper or 2 that you like from anywhere in the league.
I'll stay in your division, and I love Kenny Pickett this year. He's looked good in the preseason. You've had at least one second-year quarterback breakout every year but one since 2015. Every year. And I would go back to Blake Bortles, Lamar, Mahomes, Wentz, like every year. And, Burrow is one of them. And I think that Pickett's that guy this year. And I think that Steelers offense is going to be a lot more fun to watch through the air than we all kind of anticipate. You think of Steelers, without Roethlisberger, you think of ground and pound and running Najee. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to have a good passing offense as well. The offensive line should be better. The other guy is probably Rachaad White in Tampa Bay. They didn't bring anybody in to compete with him. I mean, he's got a clear path to workload. Leonard Fournette's no longer there. I mean, you got Chase Edmonds and Keyshawn Vaughn behind him on the depth chart. It ain't much.
Right.
So Rachaad White, and I know there's questions about the offensive line and are they going to get crushed and a negative game script and all that. All very viable, concerns. I still think at the end of the day, when I got a running back who's got that clear of a path to workload, he could be a running back too, and you can get him in around 6 or 7 right now.
Awesome. Mike, tell the people where they can find all your work and all of your fantasy information.
Sports Illustrated, first and foremost, si.com/fantasy. All of my written content, videos, all that kind of stuff is up there. Lindsey Rhodes and I, who I know you know Lindsey,
mm-hmm.
Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, Fantasy Dirt, 1 to 3 Eastern, Monday through Friday. Sunday morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. I'm going to be doing a show on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio and NFL Radio with Justin Fensterman. Also going to be doing the Fantasy Football Forecast with Amber Theo Harris on Westwood One every week during the season. And just started a new podcast over at Believe, which you can find wherever you download your podcasts.
Perfect. All the content, fantasy content in the world, man. We appreciate you joining us so much. We know you're super busy. We know this time of year is crazy. Mike, thank you for joining us.
You got it, brother. And good luck to your Bengals.
Appreciate you.
All right, that
Michael
was Michael
Fabiano.
Fabiano. What were your thoughts on that, man? I thought the Kenny Pickett stuff was kind of nasty. I'm not gonna lie.
The Kenny Pickett stuff
a
was
little
nasty. I think the clip that I'm going to pull, and you guys are probably still on the internet, is where he's talking about Jamar Chase is the number 2. I thought his information on Mixon was, I thought it was good. From a fantasy perspective, yeah, if he doesn't have that big monster game against the Panthers, it is shaky from a fantasy football standpoint. But he did allude to like the offensive line getting a little bit better. I thought his takes on Irv Smith, like just being healthy, I think alone give you a good amount of like stuff, or a good enough reason to go and draft him. So I thought, I mean, he does this all day, so I trust him. I appreciate Michael coming on the show. Like, yeah, the Kenny Pickett stuff was a little nasty, but Kenny Pickett got some weapons though, bro. Kenny Pickett got some weapons.
I get that.
Allen Robinson is your 4th option. That is not.
I just couldn't see Kenny Pickett as my starter. Like, he's like a streaming kind of quarterback. Maybe this week I'm gonna pull him out as a streamer. But nah, I mean, I get it. If you're talking about a sleeper though, I almost would go.
Who did you get on your,
bro? I
got Anthony Richardson on my bench. So he said Joe Burrow 5th and 6th round. I'm gonna just give y'all a tip. If you're in a fantasy league and you got any inclination that anybody likes the Bengals, you better get Burrow in the 4th. I had the 6th pick in the 4th round. I had to take Burrow then because by then Josh Allen and all them are off the board. So you might be looking at Lamar or Burrow. So if you're in that situation, you could probably let him slide because other players might get taken. Then somebody takes Lamar, and you might see him again. I thought him saying 5th, 6th round. I've done 100 mocks. That's super risky to think that you might get him like in the 5th and 6th.
I think I actually saw him go in the 6th round in my league. I was gonna try to get him, and he actually went. Joe went, but at the time you got to think about it because it may actually have moved up because at the time Joe hadn't returned to practice yet, so there was still that false narrative out there like, is Joe going to play week 1? So that could have played into it as well in terms of the ADP. So I think now, like you're saying, you might have to jump on it immediately. But yeah, Joe was there. I like what he said about T. Higgins too in the 2nd or 3rd round. I tried to pull up on grabbing T, I think in the 4th round, and he went right before I picked. So he was,
on some
he was
fantasy
about to fall to me, and then somebody snatched him.
On some fantasy football stuff, one of my rules is I don't care if it's Nico Collins for the Texans. I don't care if it's whoever you could think of. I only take number 1s. So T is not – and from a fantasy perspective, I just don't know with Joe Burrow able to distribute the football all over the place. I don't know if I can count on T every single week. Jamar Chase, and I'm really big on target share. So Jamar Chase, 100%. I mean,
you want to know who I ended up having to get instead?
Who?
Deebo Samuel.
I'm not mad at that. I was going to get – I'm going to tell you, you want to know the nastiest thing I was going to do in my draft? I was going to get George Pickens in like the 7th. Somebody took him 1 pick before me, and I got Tyler Lockett instead as my flex wide receiver. I took Anthony Richardson a little early. I could have got Evan McPherson, but I went Justin Tucker. That's a little nasty too.
We didn't talk about Evan McPherson. I thought that they would talk a little bit more about Evan McPherson.
I think McPherson is in for a bigger year. I looked this up. Justin Tucker, he's never finished number 1, or I was reading an article and it was saying he's always finished like top 8 or something like that. So it seems like Justin Tucker, he's like all day. I think I was kind of basing the Justin Tucker pick for me based off of, I don't know if they're going to score a lot of touchdowns this year. I do know that they're going to move the ball a little bit more with the wide receivers that they got, but I think he's going to kick a lot of field goals. Evan McPherson on the other end, I think we're going to score more touchdowns. And so that's I don't know.
I thought that it was interesting. I kind of agree with them on the defense. The Bengals defense, usually you can always kind of get them at certain points. You can get them off of the waiver wire sometimes. But I think they are a sneaky good play. The only thing that I think where they fall short is mostly the special teams because they never really have somebody like end up taking back like a kick return or a punt return.
Right.
But there could be a situation like he's saying with the Browns, where if they're able to force some turnovers, like we kind of saw in the preseason, then they might be able to do some things. But that was a dope segment. Appreciate Michael Fabiano for joining the show. We'll definitely, hopefully, be able to get him on as the season goes on. Again, possibly. I know his schedule is busy, so maybe not. But shout out to Ryan for making that happen. And I thought that he was definitely cooking on his takes there. And speaking of cooking, we're gonna have to toss it to our good friends at Midwest Best Barbecue.
Ace and Zim will keep us up on that Bengals news. And when they get it lit, Midwest Rescue is the move. On our way to make it through the grid. Keep up wings, it's so smooth that you need 50. Ace and Zim will keep us up on that Bengals news. And when they get it lit, Midwest Rescue is the move. On our way to make it through the grid. Keep up wings, it's so smooth that you need 50. Ace and Zim will keep us up on that Bengals news. And when they get it lit, Midwest Rescue is the move. On our way to make it through the grid. Keep up wings, it's so smooth that you need 50. Ace and Zim will keep us up on that Bengals news. And when they get it lit, Midwest Rescue is the move.
Shout out to Midwest Best Barbecue, home of this dope shirt, home of the best chicken wings in the Natty, home of some of the best barbecue in the Natty. If you don't believe me, check the articles, check Yelp, check the ratings, check anybody that's ever been to Midwest Best Barbecue. You will not hear them complain. And it's football season, so it's time to get some of those Uno wings, time to get some of those G-Funks, time to get you some of those brisket or pork pulled sliders. Yeah, it's time, man. Get to Midwest Best Barbecue, 669 Justice Court in Loveland, Ohio. Let them know Ace and Zim sent you. Diehard Bengals fans, the food is amazing. You can't lose with Midwest Best Barbecue. So let's talk about our next thing, which is what are the big storylines for the Bengals that nobody in the national media is talking about? I know before the show, we kind of talked about Cheeto. They are not talking about Cheeto at all. They're not talking about his return. They're not talking about how he's a really good corner. You know, they're not talking about anything when it comes to Cheeto. I think that that's a huge mistake because obviously, as you mentioned before, Cheeto just 2 years ago on PFF was the top corner in the AFC North. Obviously continued to be that model of consistency the next year because some people thought maybe it's a fluke, maybe he can't do this consecutive seasons. He proved that before he went down with the injury. Now Cheeto's back coming off of the knee injury, and no one is talking about it. Everyone's talking about Von Bell and Jesse Bates being gone. No one is talking about Cheeto. I've even heard CTB mention more than Cheeto this offseason.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Cheeto being back for the Bengals, and why is the national media not talking about this?
I don't think the national media watches full Bengals games. So they know the name of Cheeto Awuzie from the strength of he used to play for the Cowboys. They don't understand that in 2021, he was the number one rated cornerback in the AFC. In 2022, he gave up the third least amount of completion percentage in the National Football League. Like he's one of them guys, but because he played for the Cincinnati Bengals, they're not going to talk about him like that because people do not watch full Bengals games. Even people like Keyshawn Johnson, they don't watch full, but like watching the Bengals on Red Zone is not enough because you got to think, and this is part of the problem where a lot of times when the schedule comes out, people will say, dang, why we only got like 2-3, big night games, or why we got, like that's part of it. So many people saw the Bills just beat the crap out the Rams or beat the crap out of the thing. So that's in their mind. They're like, damn, I don't want that to happen to my team. Like the Bills could put up points, but they're not recognizing the team that they're going up against, scheme and all these different things. Cheeto Bay is one of them dudes, bro. I think there's a lot of stories that they're not talking about. This might sound crazy. They're not talking about Joe Burrow enough on the football field to me. Like when they talk about Joe Burrow, I feel like they talk about him a lot like at a white party or like on some cool trendy stuff, like he's at a USC fight. He's leading the National Football League in the history of football in completion percentage in the whole existence of the NFL in this short amount of time. Like, I don't know if anybody's coming on TV and telling people that. And they're just talking about shiesty, looking cool with Cartiers. And there's a lot of things going on. I think from a national standpoint, I think other teams are catching suit because, and this is the victim of getting caught in your lies so much. So many people say Burrow isn't really this when he got to the playoffs. It's the defense. So for the first year, I feel like all them Chiefers had to go and say, you know what? They do got a good coordinator. And then once they started saying it, then other people started echoing the sentiments of that. But if they didn't say that, or if nobody said anything about Lou Anarumo, people don't know anything about like, and that's crazy that you go to a Super Bowl and an AFC Championship game and people are so misinformed about the team. And that's I just feel like I don't know. There's so many people, bro. Like Trey Hendrickson. I mean, he's led the National Football League in pressures since
DJ
2000.
Reader.
We could go all the way. Like, none of these people are talking about any of those things, but those are the same people that tell you that the defense carried. Like, they're talking about Lamar Jackson, like getting washed up, like, or old or aging wide receivers is like a headline. And I get the names, but that's not a bigger story than the 3 wide receivers that consistently give you 1,000 yards every year that are in the prime of their career. Like, that's not a bigger story. Like, the defensive line of the Bengals, too, I just want to say the depth amongst it. People were really sad and bummed out about Raymond Johnson III. Let me just tell you straight up, Raymond Johnson would have never got no burn on the Bengals, bro. Like, not no squad, none of that stuff, unless something catastrophic happens that I don't want to happen. Like, the 11th guy, like, remember, the Bengals are only going to suit 8 on Sundays. So you got get down to 9, 10, 11. Like, you talking about Tupou, Tufele, Gunther, all these dudes not even active, and you think that they're going to just play Raymond? Bro, the Bengals defensive line is the deepest that it's been since 2015.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of crazy that they just have slept on a lot of the Bengals players. It is what it is. We're used to it. This is year 2 of the Wincinnati podcast. There were a lot of bad takes that came out of the national media, some that ended up on this show. We're not going to say any names, though. But speaking of games and things coming up, let's talk about our partnership once again with our friend of the show, Fans of Cincy. Right now, you can head to fansofcincy.com to book your Bengals trip for any road game. They're going to take care of your hotel. They're going to take care of your travel. They're going to take care of your tailgate, where there will be an open bar. There'll be food based off of wherever you're at. So if you're in Tennessee, you might get some Nashville hot. Who knows? They also have a live DJ, and you'll be able to consult with other Bengals fans. They take care of literally everything. Go to fansofcincy.com today and make sure that you book that. All it is a deposit of $200. And then the other thing is, if you've already got your trip planned, they still have tailgate tickets. You don't want to miss their tailgate. It's lit. Me and Zim were there in New Orleans. I was at the one in Tampa last year. You won't want to miss that. You will not want to miss it. It'll be located very close to the stadium. Your hotel will be close to the stadium. And if not, they'll provide that transportation for you. They're going to be in Jacksonville, Arizona, San Francisco. So many games and so much fun for you to be able to attend. I vouch for it. Zim vouches for it. Definitely sign up today with Fans of Cincy at fansofcincy.com.
I got my Fans of Cincy band. They gave me this at a tailgate one time. I still wear it on my Joe Burrow stuff with it. But bro, top of the line, top shelf. Like if you're skeptical,
I got you.
Yeah,
I got you.
I still rock my joint. But yeah, if you're skeptical or anything like that, I'm here to tell you, food top of the line, getting like, with other like-minded Bengals fans, and just that's a thing when you're traveling. You want to link with people that like that are on your side. So I think it's a dope way to get with like fans that like for somebody that's like me, believe it or not, I'm not as outspoken when I go like traveling. I'm just like, hey, my name's Zim. Like, but I see people with Bengals gear on. I'm like, who they? And then you kind of get in the mix. So
and we even had the march. We even had the march of like 1,000 Bengals fans in New Orleans on Bourbon Street. So there's all kind of dope stuff that we're able to participate in, and you'll be able to participate in if you do book with Fans of Cincy. Final thoughts. Did you have any final thoughts before we get up out of here, Zim?
9 is back. Hey, 9 is back. All I know is number 9. Like, I don't know what else. Like, they all coming for our head. It's fear, but I'm dropping my stuff coming up soon. I don't know when you dropping, but it's fear of an orange planet, bro. Like, that's what I'm doing this year. And everybody's after the Bengals on the strength of they're tired of being wrong about this team. And here we are. Like, number 9 is back, better than ever. Coach is saying, bro, he's got a different command to him now. It's just different.
Where can they get the fear of the orange of the planet gear at, though? Where can they get it at?
I think I'm going to drop tomorrow, bro. ZimHouday.com. This is one of my funnest collections of Burrow Baby Season 3 dropping. Fun stuff. I love the design. Yeah, we're going to have some fun this year. Like, but it's fear of an orange planet. So many people so fearful of the Bengals that they even come to our show to be like, man, the Bengals are going to fall off. Like, you trying to convince yourself that, you know, like, they're not who they say they are. The Bengals are 11.5 favorite. Like, I mean, you know, favorites to get the over or under is 11.5 games currently right now. Nobody in our division is even near that. You're not who you think you are.
Not.
Teams like the Ravens, you have won 2 playoff games in a decade. The Browns, you're averaging 1 playoff appearance like every 10 years.
Every century.
Every like you've never been this. You never even won a division. Don't kid yourself. It's number 9. We back, baby.
Yes, sir. It's number 9. I'll be dropping my new shirt. It's actually not going to be player related. It'll be coaching related. I'll put that out there. It's going to drop this weekend. Also have GCA 2. That'll be dropping as well. So we'll get that going. But you can get
what's the site?
Zim's merch at ZimHouday.com. You can get my merch at NewStripeCity.com. You can follow us on Twitter at NewStripeCity, as it says here on the screen, at ZimHouday. Also, the Wincinnati Pod at Wincinnati Pod on Twitter. That helps us grow the show. And leave us your reviews. We appreciate that. That definitely helps people find the show. We'll be back next week in regular season mode, so you can look forward to seeing us 2 times a week. Again, you can look forward to seeing the Bengals post 2 times a week. This is Wincinnati, and this has been the Wincinnati Podcast.
Yeah.
Persky.
It's an exciting time to be a Bengals fan.
I'm Ace and Zim.
We got a special show as always.
The voice of the Bengals. Dan Ford, Willie Anderson, Corey Dillon.
The name of this thing is called Wincinnati, and I'm not going to stop.
Talk to us about that roller coaster season.
I'm still going to give you the same AJ.
I'm going to work as hard as I can to be the best.
Always working ever since I met y'all, boy.
I gotta get you a top 5 receiver.
Better, man.
It was good.
Watch out for us.